Hey, good morning. This is Joe from Citrus County Porch Life, bringing you the AA word of the day for February 4th, 2025. And the word of the day is when faith is missing. And here's the quote: just waiting for the trucks. Sometimes AA comes harder to those who have lost or rejected faith than to those who never had any faith at all. For they think that they have tried faith and found it wanting. They have tried the way of faith and the way of no faith. And here's the commentary: I was so sure God had failed me that I became ultimately defiant, though I knew better and plunged into a final drinking binge. My faith turned bitter, and that was no coincidence. Those who once had great faith hit bottom harder. It took time to rekindle my faith, though I came to AA. I was grateful intellectually to have survived such a great fall, but my heart felt callous. Still, I stuck with the AA program. The alternatives were too bleak. I kept coming back, and gradually my faith was restored. Well, another great reading. They're all great, really. I'm going to have some. I'm right-handed, so it's really weird. This is this is reversed as I look at it, the tablet, and makes me look left-handed, but I'm right-handed. So this is quite something. As I keep saying, I have faith in God, but yeah, I won't say it was like God is dead or a clockwork universe that God set it in motion and is not involved. But there really was a push for me, by my parents and everyone else I knew, that you can do it and you can do it on your own. You don't need any help. You're smart enough, you can do it. So that permeated almost everything I did. It just, that's the way it was. And I had success in school, I had success in sports, so it seemed to be working. And my plan was to conquer alcohol, develop a plan where you could drink in safety and you didn't have to worry. But that was a pipe dream. Uh, my final My final drinking spurge binge. I got sober on 3/4/91, but I had made plans. I always make an alternate plan. They say Plan B. When I showed up at the meeting, I had got drunk the weekend before, even though I didn't really want to. I did, and I showed up at what was to become my meeting, where I attended the beginners meeting for over 6 months. I showed up with my Chevy S10 with the cover on and beer all over the back. You know, my thinking was, if this meeting really sucks, I'm out of here and I'm going to drink. But by the grace of God, I went into the meeting, and I remember this really nice guy with red hair said to me, we have a beginners meeting. You might like that. I said, okay, how do I know? He said, I'll come and get you and tell you where it is, and don't worry about that. And so the meeting was put into two parts, like a general meeting, and then after the cigarette break, they did have cigarette breaks in those days. There was a beginners meeting, so all that happened. And he came over. Yeah, Joe, it's in the kitchen. He said it's a big kitchen. You'll be able to find a seat. He said, go there, see what you think about it. I said, well, thanks. That's okay. Yeah, and I liked it, and I kept going for 6 months. But my final drinking binge, and I sensed that it would be my final. I was going to lose my job at Bank of Boston, not through any fault of my own, but they had transferred me there uh, to learn the system of programs that we had, and they thoroughly learned everything they could from me. And plus, I wanted to get off. I had more seniority than anyone that was on the third shift, because most people, when they get enough time and a job opens, they move. But I was happy with third shift, and I knew the end was coming. I just knew it. And I had a birthday coming up the next month on the day that I stopped drinking, and I wanted things to be different. I didn't want to use being out of a job as an okay to drink as much as I possibly could. I wanted to be constructive. I wanted to be able to put out resumes and find another job right away. Of course, one of the things that was happening simultaneously was everybody else that was in IT was losing their jobs because things were moving to India, and so a lot of people were out of work, all competing for the same jobs. So I knew that I had to be on my toes, and so I drank the weekend before I came in, and I had 3 months under my belt when I got laid off. 3 months of sobriety under my belt. And going to meetings, going to an 8 o'clock meeting when I got out of work, then going over to McDonald's, getting breakfast, and then going to a 10 o'clock meeting at a Salvation Army facility. So I did a lot of meetings. I didn't do very many at night because I did, well, if you count the hour in between, I did 3 hours a day. And as I mentioned, no matter where you went, you saw the signs, and I was against them. And what do they mean? How does this relate to me? But I kept going. My big goal was to go 3 days without drinking. And the first 3 days I was sober, I did that. And I said, well, I don't want this to end up starting to feel better. And that's how I did it. And I didn't lose or reject my faith at any point in this. And I was still going to church. And it was just my own walk perception of what the relationship was between myself and God. And it was definitely skewed and it was incorrect, but it gradually was restored to what it should be, by going to meetings, talking to people. Of course, there were some that had no higher power, Or they say, well, it'll be a hippopotamus in a tutu, that's my higher power. And I kind of rolled my eyes. But they were sober. So they were getting something out of the program. And so that's how I came in. Not your typical one that's fighting against God. I wasn't fighting against God. Was, I guess, I'm trying to be like God, controlling everything I did and not realizing my life was out of control. And that all I had to do was surrender and get control back. But I didn't see that. I had to be taught. And that was one of the great things that happened those first 6 months of the beginners meeting. I was taught how everything worked. I was so dumb. One of the groups I went to was a speaker group, and he said, well, we're going to have to go to a night meeting. I said, okay. I said, can I ride with you guys? Yeah, oh yeah, you can ride with us. Now, and then they said, commitment. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, maybe they're going to some guy's house to grab him and take him into some kind of detox facility. So I didn't know what commitment meant. And when we got there at the church or hall, it was actually right over the border in Connecticut from Rhode Island. So I said to the guy who drove, I said, who's the person that's getting committed? And he looked at me and he had a big laugh. He said, a commitment is where we make a commitment to show up at a meeting and speak. So we're not taking someone to a detox. So that shows you how much I knew about everything that back then when I was fresh and new, and it was interesting. I didn't have enough time to speak. I forget what the exact time of sobriety was, but it was good riding in the car with those guys, getting to the meeting in Connecticut, everyone welcoming us, coming up, introducing themselves. I was much more comfortable with that back then, after so much time at the beginners meeting and sitting there and listening to stories. I had heard them before, but it was nice to be in a different setting and hear it. And eventually I started talking. I think it was either 6 months or a year. And I was able to give my story because they were not, you're going to be okay doing this? I said, yeah. And so that's, how I came to really start to fit in to AA and not feel like an outsider. So I guess what you'd say is my faith was not missing, but I just wasn't using it the way I should be. And I don't know. I've met many people with no faith, and perhaps there are a lot of people like who are like me. But so that's the story. So have a safe and sober Tuesday, and see you tomorrow. God bless.